I always wash my hands when using a public restroom, but now I'm getting the soap to my elbow.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com and at Yahoo Sports Australia, and you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_bball and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today we are looking at Wednesday's games. We are previewing Thursday's action. Michael Bolton.
Let's get to it.
Let's get to it indeed. I'm going a little bit early today because my son has his cricket finals on tonight. So I'm not going to be recapping the last two games of the day. That is the Pelicans and the Mavericks and the Wizards and the Blazers. But you can see my recaps for those over on basketballmonster.com. So let's get into the games that we are talking about for today. And if my screen would actually adjust, here we go. The first game we look at is the Boston Celtics and the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Celtics get the win in the end, 112-106. They were without a ton of players. Jason Tatum returned, but no Jaylen Brown, no Kemba Walker. Marcus Smart did end up avoiding that suspension. So we had a pretty weird lineup here. Wanamaker and Smart starting. Gordon Hayward was out as well, with Grant Williams, Tatum, and Vanilla Tice. Tatum was great, 32, 9, and 6 with 2 steals, while Smart, he started off pretty poorly, but ended with 18 points and 2 steals. Not the best night from Daniel Tice. And in fact, they closed the game with Grant Williams at center. Williams had 8 points and 5 rebounds in his 26 minutes, while Tice only the 19 minutes, as the Rock DJ Robbie Williams played 14 and Enes Kanter played 14. Now, I'm not panicking exactly here on Tice. That's not a great sign. Let's see if they continue to run this three-man center rotation. If Tice plays 20 minutes a night, he's a clear drop. Let's just wait and see. I think it could be somewhat matchup related. They're matching up against Larry Nance. Those other guys were playing well. Tice wasn't having his best game. But it is obviously one for us to watch. Shemi Ojale, 22 points in 30 minutes, got kicked in the nuts as well. Was able to return. That's one of his better nights. You will never get that from Shemi Ojale really ever again, so don't get too excited there. While the Rock DJ did have 3 blocks in his 14 minutes, he could be back to being a blocks stream option. For Cleveland, there was no Andre Drummond again. Kevin Love had 26 and 14 with 5 assists. Great game from him, while Larry Nance was also good. 19 and 15 with 4 assists and 4 steals. We know that Nance is always going to produce when he gets those chances. 45 minutes for the Padawan Colin Sexton. The Cavs were basically playing with 7 players here. 41 points and 6 assists for Sexo. A really, really good game from him, while Dellavedova didn't score somehow, but had 5 rebounds and 4 assists. Now, Kevin Porter was going to start and then forgot his jersey in the locker room, so he had to run off. Dellavedova got the start. Porter checked back in and then got a hit to the head, ended up with only 10 minutes. 1 point with 2 rebounds. An obviously disappointing night from Porter. Until we hear that he's ruled out for multiple games, I'm still holding him in 12-team leagues. Osman, 13 and 5. Nothing too exciting there. Still just a deeper league guy, while Dean Wade had 2 points in his 16 minutes of action on the court. All right. Let's have a look at the next one. It is the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Detroit Pistons. The Thunder get the win 114-107. Just more of the same from the Thunder. Gilgeous-Alexander, 27 points with Richie Beno.
2 for 2.
That's 2 threes, 2 steals, and 2 blocks, while Schroeder had 23 points and 9 assists. Chris Paul was solid, as was Danilo Gallinari, who had 19 and 7, and also 4 steals for Gallinari. You don't really get that all that often.
Hands off my cock!
Steven Adams disappointed again. He's been an absolute roller coaster in terms of hot streaks and cold streaks. 8 and 7 for Steve in this one. While Noel did have to go to the locker room, but came back, got 1 steal, had 3 blocks, and literally you don't want anything extra, or anything extra you get from him as a bonus. This is all that you fantasily employ him to do. For the Pistons, they claimed Jordan McRae off waivers. Didn't let him go through, didn't let him go to the Suns where he wanted to go. They claimed him. They played him 26 minutes immediately. Now, he had 15 points. He started out on fire, and then the shots eventually stopped falling. We know what he is. He's a gunner who's going to take a lot of shots. He had 2 rebounds and 3 assists. I don't know why they would get a guy who's 28, about to turn 29 in McRae when they've got players like Kyrie Thomas, Svi Mykhailiuk, Bruce Brown, Luke Kennard, if those guys ever come back to try and develop. But here we are with 26 minutes for Jordan McRae and 38 minutes for Brandon Knight. Is McRae a must-roster player? No, because, look, he came here, first game played 26 minutes. That's obviously encouraging. But again, no Rose, no Kennard, no Brown. Now, I don't know if those guys are going to return or when those guys are going to return. So short term, you need a boost in points and threes. McRae can do that. He does little else apart from score. And again, he should not be prioritized over these other players. Of course, it's Dwayne Casey, so we get 28 minutes of Langston Galloway as well. Don't get overly suckered into adding McRae. By all means, stream him in, see what happens, but don't look at him as the savior for your team. The Crucifix Christian Wood was great, 29-9 with 5 threes on 75%. Well, Brandon Knight, I'm much happier adding Brandon Knight than McRae, to be honest. 18-2-7 with 2 steals and 4 threes. Short term, a really defined role as a starting point guard with Rose out. Good numbers from him. Tone Snell had 6 assists as well, which again, that's 2 games in a row for big assists for Tony. He had 2 steals also, while the Muppet John Henson had 10 and 5. Not much else really happening there from a Pistons point of view. Let us go now on to the next game. This was a blowout by the Bucks over the Pacers, 119-100. Malcolm Brogdon, unfortunately, wasn't able to play all of this game. He suffered a hip injury and didn't return. That's about his 20th injury of this season, it feels like. 4-2 in 11 minutes. That gives Aaron Holiday 2 opportunities to get minutes. Now, he's been terrible these last few games. He started here in place of Oladipo. 5-5 with 2 steals for Holiday. He is not a 12-team must-add guy, nor is Justin Holiday, who played only 19 minutes. Now, Justin did get 4 steals, and that's valuable, but these guys just sort of sit on that periphery, even though that extra opportunity could be opening up with Brogdon going down. McDermott had 16 points, while Timothy John McConnell, 14-4-6 with 2 steals. He'd be an interesting stream option if Brogdon does happen to miss time. 15-10-7 for Sabonis, while Miles Turner had 7-5, but at least he got those 2 blocks for us, while Tony Warren had 18-4 with no defensive numbers. For the Bucks, the big Ragu, Donte DiVincenzo. You know I like this guy long term. You know I think he's going to be a top 100 fixture next season. 23 minutes, 19-7, 3 threes, 3 assists, 3 steals, 1 block, 50% shooting, 6 of 6 from the line. He should never play fewer minutes than Wes Matthews, even though he did that again in this game. A great steal stream option for this season. He is the 117th ranked player over the course of the year, largely on the back of that, but he gets assists, he can score a bit. He has been really, really impressive. Interestingly, to begin this season, he wasn't even in the rotation, even though I thought he had a chance to start this year, and then they've gradually worked him in and found this 20-minute a night role for him. So, really good numbers again from DiVincenzo. Yanni had 29, 12, and 6 in only 28 minutes. Middleton 20 and 8. While it was good to see Eric Bledsoe's playing time push back up. 16, 5, and 7 for Bled in 27 minutes. A quiet night from Lopez, just the 3 points on 1 of 6 shooting, while Marvin Williams again getting those bench minutes over Ersan Ilyasova, who was a DNP CD. Let's go on to the next game. We're looking at the Utah Jazz. They beat the New York Knicks 112-104. Rudy Gobert.
Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert.
Just a monster performance again. 18 and 14, 2 blocks, 88 from the field, 80 from the line. He is the 10th ranked player over the last week, while the Donovan Mitchell had 23 points and 8 assists.
He's good.
Mike Conley also looking pretty good. 27 minutes, 17, 2 and 6, and Bojan Bogdanovic had 23 points. Good to see his volume back up. If you're streaming Joe Ingles for assists, he's getting them. Another 6 assists. Nothing else there is worth looking at. He only took 4 shots, but the assists keep coming in, and that does provide him some 12-team value, but he is very, very far from a must-roster guy, while the Jordan Clarkson hot streak is clearly over. 7 points in 21 minutes with 1 assist and 0 rebounds. This is what he does. He is as hot and cold as they come, and now we're in the middle of that cold streak from Jordan Clarkson. For the Knicks, Lord Alfred Payton played 19 minutes last game. He was back to 28. He had 20.7 rebounds and 9 assists. That's strong. Julius, the Tasmanian Devil Randle, had 32 and 11 in his 32 minutes, while with Mitchie Robinson out, Punch Bob had 21 points in 30 minutes. Now, as long as Robinson's out, Portis is going to get minutes, and that means he's going to take shots. He's going to do very little else, but he's going to take those shots. So good numbers there, while Rowan Barrett couldn't continue his good form from the Rockets game. 14, 4, and 5 on 42% shooting, but encouragingly, he hit all 3 of his free throws. Mo Harkless did nothing, and Taj Gibson was very disappointing in the start, only 14 minutes, which is fewer than the minutes he normally plays when Robinson is around. Shout out to you, Mike Miller. Let's move on to the next game. It is the Memphis Grizzlies and the Brooklyn Nets. An absolute ass-kicking here. After Brooklyn came back in that huge win against Boston, they were unable to muster up the energy to knock off the Grizzlies, and they got absolutely spanked. 118-79. Tyus Jones continued. That's 2 games in a row. 18, 5, and 6. He's a really strong assists stream guy and actually upped the usage here, while Gorgie Jeng had 6 and 14 with 2 blocks. Only 19 minutes for Jeng. He's sort of okay as a 12-team stream, but not a must-roster guy at this point. Morant was 15, 7, and 5, but Joshy Jackson now, incorrectly before the game, the Grizzlies did list Josh Jackson as inactive. I did posit this on Basketball Monster that maybe they meant to list Jaren Jackson, and then when he just wasn't entering the game, I thought, well, maybe it's not actually Josh Jackson. They did mark him inactive, but he was the 10th man in Taylor Jenkins' rotation, but he played fantastically. 19 points in 17 minutes with 4 threes, 1 assist, and 2 steals. Now, the problem there is he had a 36% usage. How's he going to do that when Clark and Winslow and Jackson are all back? He's not going to maintain that. If he's the 10th man coming into the rotation, where does he fit? Surely he'll take John Konchar's minutes, but Konchar was in before him in this one. So he's not a must-add guy at this point outside of deeper leagues, but in 14 teams or even 12 as a short-term stream, Josh Jackson's putting up numbers. Bad night from the wave pool, 9 points with 3 triples for DeAnthony Melton and no steals. That's what we're treating him as, a steal streamer, but then he didn't get any, so that's disappointing. While Konchar had 5, 4, and 2 across his 22 minutes, and Anthony Tolliver played 24 minutes, and we just know that he won't play as we move forward. Dylan Brooks, the fraud, 12 points in 22 minutes, and I say that sort of jokingly, but he's just not that good, and look, he has been really poor. Over the last 20 games, Dylan Brooks is, if you don't know the answer to this, think about what rank you think he might be, because whatever it is, it's probably lower. He's the 236th ranked player over the last 20 games. If you don't need any more indication to drop a bloke, that is it. 10s, gone. 12s, see you later. He's just not good. 12 points, 0 rebounds, and 1 assist for Dylan Brooks here. Chris Chiozza, second game in a row, really good. 14 and 3 with 2 triples for him. But again, the blowout did help there with Dinwiddie only playing the 27 minutes. Joe Harris had 13 and 8, while Karis LeVert went from 51 points to 14 points on 19 shots. Ish. He did have 6 assists and a steal, but we talked about how that 67% shooting had 0 chance of sticking, and that usage probably would come down. Well, it didn't come down that much. He had 33% usage, but still a rough night overall. Speaking of rough shooting nights, the king of the rough shooting night, Taurean Prince, was also 32% on a 38% usage. 15 points for Prince, though. He has been a real disappointment all season. Jarrett Allen was bad, 6 and 9, while DeAndre Jordan only played the 14 minutes. This was just a write-off very, very early on from the Brooklyn Nets perspective. The Orlando Magic just couldn't get over the line against the Miami Heat. 113, 116 in the end. Miami gets the win. Aaron Gordon returned from his knee injury. Low usage again. Just 11 points on 10 shots on a usage of 15%. But the assists, 9 assists and 2 steals. I don't know what's changed for him over the last week or so to get all these assists, but it's working from a fantasy point of view. Well, Terrence Ross did the opposite. 35 points with 8 triples. Literally nothing else. 0 rebounds, 0 assists, 0 steals, 0 blocks. That's really hot shooting. He will go out and probably shoot 20% next game, but for points and threes, he is a good stream option off the waiver wire. Fournier banged up his elbow, but stayed in the game. 17 points with 3 threes, 2 steals, and 2 blocks. And any game, I don't know, I don't have it in front of me, but I reckon there's probably never been a game that Evan Fournier has gotten 2 blocks or more in, apart from this one. Vooch had 22, 16, and 7, while Jimmy Ennis, disappointing, 4 points in 27 minutes there for him, while Fultz had 14, 2, and 6. He's just solid enough at a back-end level, Fultz, but not really showing much upside. 23 minutes only for Kendrick Nunn, 9 points with 3 threes, 2 assists and a steal on 27% shooting. He's very, very up and down. He played pretty well coming out of the All-Star break, but in saying that, he's still the 137th ranked player over the last week. I don't see him as a must-roster guy long-term. For now, sure, while Hero's out, now I don't even know when the hell Hero's coming back, but it's just getting 30 minutes a night from him and getting him consistently to be good is the challenge. And I've been talking about him as a sell high all year because the Heat's injury reporting has been so bad, they just wouldn't say anything on Justice Winslow, so that just kept prolonging the 30 minutes a night, the same with Dragic, and now the same thing's happening with Hero. But when this team gets healthy, I don't see 30 minutes a night from Nunn, and I don't think he's good enough to be a 24, 25, 26 minute a night, 12-team fantasy standard guy. Adebayo had 10, 7, and 4, and Butler 12, 7, and 8. Pretty poor performances from both those guys. Really, really low usage because the Spur Duncan Robinson couldn't miss. 27 points, 9 threes, 9 of 12 from deep. Now, he does nothing else. He is the perfect one category guy, but when the threes go in at that volume, he then starts to help you in points and in field goal percentage as well. Really strong numbers from Dunk, who is the 124th ranked guy on the season, in large part because, it's almost exclusively because of his ability to knock in three-pointers. Next up, Chicago Bulls. Horrible loss against the Minnesota Timberwolves, 115-108. They did welcome back Lauri Markkanen. We got an increase in the minutes for Otto Porter and Wendell Carter Jr., but no Zach LaVine, and they couldn't get the win. Thad Young came off the bench, still played 29 minutes and had 13, 6, and 4 with 3 steals and 2 blocks. Now, I think those minutes will have to come down soon. Only 21 for Lauri. Those minutes will start to switch, and then Thad does become a drop. Big Shaq Harrison.
Big Shaq.
He had 3 steals.
2 + 2 is 4. -1, that's 3 quick maths.
He also had 3 triples.
2 + 2 is 4. -1, that's 3 quick maths.
I don't really understand why he's out there playing. Surely Otto Porter can just go, look, if you can start Lauri Markkanen and Wendell Carter in their first games back, you can put Otto Porter in there. Shaq doesn't have much value. 26 points for Kobe White in 35 minutes with 6 assists. I think Thomas Satoransky is going to end up losing minutes here. White's putting up some really big numbers. Of course, can be dependent on his field goal percentage, but good to see those assists coming in. Strong high usage from him, while Carter had 6 and 9 and Markkanen 13 and 4 in his return. Just go and scoop him off the wire. As for Otto Porter, fantastic first game back, but we did caution, hey, that massive high usage and ridiculous efficiency won't stick. Well, he had 2 points on 1 of 8 shooting on under 22% usage, and that's going to go down when LaVine comes back. He probably should still be a 12-team league guy, but he's just not going to have enough minutes to be a consistent top 50 guy, which he has been in the past. And those numbers from that first game were a little bit of an illusion, I think. Denzel the Hammer Valentine started. He had 11 points in 18 minutes. He'll probably go out of the rotation once LaVine actually returns. For the Wolves, Jim Johnson, did he make us proud? So, did he?
Yeah!
Yes, he did. 8 and 4 with 5 assists, 2 steals, 3 blocks, 22 minutes. He'll probably lose a little bit when Towns comes back, but he's a 12-team league guy, as is Malik Beasley, obviously. 24 points, and D'Angelo Russell had 19, 3, and 4. But let's talk about my bloke, Jordan McLaughlin. 27 minutes, 10 points, 7 assists, and a steal. This guy's real. This guy is a real NBA player. I think he's a strong caliber backup point guard. They're playing him alongside D'Angelo Russell. He's got streaming value for those assists alone. He's looked really good. Naz Reid, also a 12-team league guy, 16 and 11 with 2 blocks and 3 threes, while a little bit of a quieter night from One Show, who had 12 and 7 with 2 triples. A much better night from Jarrett Culver, who is shooting the 3-ball better, 13 and 5 with 3 triples there for Jarrett Culver. All right, let's move on and look at some injury news across the NBA before we move into DFS. Clint Capella out another at least couple of weeks. The chances of him returning to full minutes this season seem pretty slim. If you are in a do-or-die situation, he is going to be somewhat of a drop option. Jordan McRae, touched on that already. He is signed with the Pistons. Jaylen Brown out at least a week with a hamstring. Hopefully it's 2 weeks. You don't want to push hamstrings at all. Well, Jaren Jackson should be reevaluated on the weekend, and he'll be likely to return early next week. The other big news is, of course, that Steph Curry will be returning on Thursday. So how that all works with the Warriors is a big question mark. Big Fox Mulder, he's been putting up some good numbers. What happens with Jordan Poole, Damian Lee? How does all those backcourt wing, Juan Toscano Anderson, Wiggins' usage, Draymond's viability, it's going to throw so many things out of whack with the Warriors, and we don't even know how many minutes Steph's going to play, but he is back, and that is fantastic news to see him back in action in the NBA. Kevin Porter had that head injury. We'll wait to see what happens there. Shemi Ojeleye kicked in the ball sack, but he was okay, returned to the game, and then Brogdon with his hip. Given Brogdon's back issues this season and his multiple injuries, I would assume that he misses some time, but we don't have that confirmed just at this point. Let's now have a look at the games for Thursday. We are looking at DraftKings pricing for these games. The first one is the Denver Nuggets at the Charlotte Hornets. I don't know what the center rotation is going to be. I think it's probably going to be Cody Zeller and Billy Hernan-Gomez again, but we just don't know at this point. While Devontae Graham missed last game. He is questionable. If he is out, you get your Martins ×2, and Jalen McDaniels getting that boost, as well as Terry Rozier. At point guard, Graham is down at $5,800. Now, if he plays, I love that price for him. but we just don't know that at this stage. And then you got the Blue Arrow at 6,800. Probably find better options there. And one of those better options is Rozier at 62, especially if Devontae Graham happens to be sidelined. Monty Morris is getting good minutes in the mid-20s, but it's not really translating to good DFS value most nights. At shooting guard, you got Fart and Will Barton at 56. Not a bad cash play with some tournament upside, while Cody Martin is at 4,500. Again, I think that can be a cash option as well, assuming that Graham is out in that spot. Caleb Martin at 34 is a tournament guy, or he's not even a tournament guy if Graham plays, but if Graham is out, then he's a GPP guy. For your small forwards, Miles Bridges at 57. I like that for cash floor. He hasn't been playing that well, but still getting us 25, 26 points, which is fine at that number. Mickey Porter at 4,000. I don't want much to do with that. While Jalen McDaniels at 36, a really strong GPP guy, probably over someone like Caleb Martin if those minutes do come with Devontae, or if Devontae is sidelined. At centre, Millsap's at 4,600. Huge game from him last time out. I don't trust that, but I do trust Big Chungus Nikola Jokic at 9,500. He should exceed 50 here pretty comfortably. Cody Zeller is a no-go for me, and then you go to guys like Paul Washington, Jeremy Grant, and Mason Plumlee. I think Washington at 55 has some cash value with some upside for tournaments also. Let's take a look now at the second game. It is the Clippers and the Rockets. The Clippers clean injury sheet, which is great. The Rockets are 1-point favorites, and the total is 237 points. Just Damari Carroll is on the injury report as ill for Houston, but he doesn't play anyway. At point guard, Westbrook's at 10,000. Just lock him in for 50 every night, so that's a really good one. And Jimmy Harden at 10,700. Love those prices for both of those blokes. Reggie Jackson at 43. Don't like it, but it is going to cut into Patrick Beverley, who has done nothing since returning. Bev's at 3,600. I don't think we want to look at him too closely. While Lou Williams at 59, probably a little bit overpriced. For your shooting guards, Eric Gordon's at 38. Look, he can get hot and bang in 7 triples, and then the value's exceeded. But he just doesn't do it often enough to be anywhere close to a cash guy. And then at small forward, you got Paul George, the Beatle at 74. I love that price for George. His minutes are ramping up. This game should be close. He should get mid-30s in minutes, and he should be able to exceed 40 points. So I do like Paul George there, as well as the fun guy, Kawhi Leonard.
I'm a fun guy.
He is at 9,300. Yeah, I'd probably look at George over Leonard to save that money, but he is an option. Dan House had a big 32-pointer last time out against the Knicks. I don't really trust that happening, and Marcus Morris at 5,000 is too high. For your big men, PJ Tucker at 37, strong no. Bob Covington at 6,700, yes, love what Covington's doing. He had 50 points against the Knicks, and he's averaging 38 over the last 5. Or Zubac and Harrell, 6,500. Now, this could be a matchup that really suits Harrell, the small ball situation, so I wouldn't mind him as a GPP guy, but I wouldn't get overly excited about him. But this is a great, I think this is one of the better opportunities you'll see for someone like Montrezl Harrell. Next game, Philadelphia 76ers and the Sacramento Kings. The Kings are 4.5-point favorites. Richie Beno, what's the total?
2 for 222.
Yes, Richaun Holmes has been upgraded to doubtful for the Kings, while De'Aaron Fox and Corey Joseph are both probable. Joshie Richardson, Joel Embiid, and Ben Simmons all remain sidelined for Philadelphia. At point guard, Alec Burks is at 5,000. Only for tournaments would I consider that, while Fox at 8,000 looks pretty good, especially with the defensive talent off the floor in what's it called, Philadelphia. Big Shake Milton. He's probably a little high still, 6,500. Didn't get there last game, just the 27 points. Only for tournaments would I really look at him at that elevated price point. And then at shooting guard, Furky from Turkey's at 45. He's a tournament player. Bud Hield's at 59. Too high for a guy getting 23 minutes a night. And Bogdan Bogdanovic, too unreliable at 5,500. I don't really like any of those shooting guard type players. Someone accused me of only playing the Harrison Barnes sound effect because I like, well, only talking about Harrison Barnes because I like playing the Harrison Barnes sound effect. The pencil, Harrison Barnes. Barnesy. You were right. You can ignore him. Toby Harris, 7,900. I think that's a strong cash play. While the little dog Glenn Robinson dropped in 35 points last game, really hard to see him replicating that. Despite the same injuries being there, he just won't be as efficient, or probably won't even get those sort of minutes. It's always an up-in-the-air one. Throw him into a tournament, fine. But I just don't see the reliability there with Glenn Robinson. For your big men, will they start Mike Scott again? I think they started that Scott-Horford combination because it was the Lakers, so I'm not convinced that we get 36 minutes of Mike Scott again. In the case that we do hear he's starting at 3,800, that's not a bad value play. Al Horford at 7,000, I think there's a pretty solid value in him. And Harry Giles at 54, good cash value play. Not sure about the upside, but good cash value. Alex Len, Nemanja Bjelica, former Sixers legend Nemanja Bjelica. Really don't think we're going to get too excited about those guys for this one. Next up is the Raptors and the Warriors. The return of Steph Curry. The Raptors are 10.5-point favourites, and a surprise addition to the injury report, or a surprise upgrade. Marc Gasol is questionable, along with Fred VanVleet and Serge Ibaka. For the Warriors, Kevon Looney is out. Draymond Green is questionable, but Steph Curry is back at point guard. VanVleet's at 6,500. Wouldn't want to use him first game out, but you might get low roster percentage with him, so you could throw him in a tournament. Lowry at 8,600 feels a little bit too high when Steph comes in at 8,000. First game back for Steph at 8,000. I don't think I'd have the balls to use him. We just don't know. It's been like 60 games since he played. And we know, I know he's still good, but how many minutes is he going to play? That's the risk there with Curry. Wiggins is at 7,800, and Curry returning is going to have an impact somewhat on him. It could be a positive impact, but he's going to have an impact of some description. I think we'll leave Wiggins for tournaments, while Fox Mulder at $4,000. He's getting a lot of opportunities at the moment, Mulder. I'm not really sure that we trust that with Steph back. Same with Damian Lee. While Storm and Norman Powell at 6,600, I like it. If VanVleet is out, if VanVleet plays, it's not as appealing, obviously, because his minutes will drop back down. Jordan Poole's at 5,000. He's been putting up good numbers, but again, Steph coming back is going to have somewhat of a cut-in impact on him. At small forward, Toscano Anderson, I'd be feel pretty confident in saying he won't start in this game, but not really going to be a DFS option. While the triangle, Eric Pascal, if Draymond's out, he provides enough value to be a cash guy. And the Jedi, OG Anunoby.
Hello there.
Hello there indeed. He's at 6,400. Now, he had a bit of a down game last time, but still had 31 points. I don't feel comfortable about using 6,400 on Anunoby, especially if Gasol and Ibaka play. That will be a big impact. At center, Gasol at 4,400 and Ibaka at 6,000. There's just too much unknowns with both of those guys to really get excited about them. While Marquise Chris at 6,000. If Gasol plays, that is a really tough negative matchup for him. If Gasol is out, it's a little bit easier. I think we can find better center options around. I wouldn't want to risk it, though, by using Draymond Green. While the Waterboy Chris Boucher dropped in 46 points last time out with Ibaka and Gasol sidelined. But even in the other games with Ibaka and Gasol out, he's been nowhere close to that. That was a real weird outlier against Phoenix. You could use him as a tournament guy, but again, all of the evidence would say that was an outlier, and everything else is a more realistic expectation for what Nick Nurse does when he uses Chris Boucher. Let's now flip it over. Just have a look at FanDuel at some options there. You've got Burks, you've got Milton, George, Miles Bridges, Horford, Fox, Millsap, Giles, Westbrook, Lowry, Jimmy Harden, Toby Harris, Siakam, Rozier, Norm Powell, and Big Chungus Nikola Jokic. Guys, I'll be back tomorrow, so don't forget, subscribe so you never miss an episode. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube. Leave a comment down below. Tweet it at me at redrock_bball. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya. Andrew Harrison.